Good morning, everyone. Getting people joined in. All right, good morning. Welcome. We're so glad you joined us today. Today, we're going to talk about uh, sleep recovery and burnout prevention because we all, I don't know, speaking for myself, we all need it. Um, and we is meaning me. Anyway, glad you're here. And with that, I'm going to pass you over to Lydia.
Hello and good morning, everyone. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come share time and space with us and to come together over a very important topic to our well-being. And it's really an honor to be able to present to you today. For those of you who don't know me, again, my name's Lydia Check. I'm the director of the wellness program. I'm also a health behavior coach and a certified wellness practitioner. And I've put together this presentation on rest based on feedback that you've provided us in our evaluations and our surveys. So this directly comes from the needs that we're hearing from the community. And in that, I would really love for our time together to be a discussion. I'd love for us to explore the topics together. There's going to be a lot of material, but I'd like to follow the enthusiasm and spend the most time where we are finding the engagement and the relevant information. And so I would be more than happy if you at any time need to ask a question. You can come off mute and hop in, or you can put your questions in chat, same with comments. And yeah, I appreciate y'all being here. So we're going to look at the connection between sleep, recovery, and workplace performance. We're also going to identify some common workplace barriers to rest strategies, and we're going to talk about ways that we can overcome them. We're going to learn practical tools and techniques to improve sleep quality and energy levels. And then we're going to have access to a resource to help us develop an action plan for integrating micro recovery breaks into our work days. Or you're welcome to pick any other sleep or rest related behavior change. That is an optional piece, but it's always part of the material is making it easy for people to adopt a new change if they feel as though that would benefit them. So I wanted to put into chat two documents so you can have access to those throughout the presentation. One is a sleep and recovery integration checklist, and the other is a personal sleep and recovery action checklist. And so get those two in here. And off we go. So I'm curious, why does rest matter? And how can we reframe rest as a necessary productivity tool and not just a luxury or something that we have to manage on our own time, right? How can we look at it as a natural need that we can integrate into our lifestyle and our workday? And normalize that need for rest and recovery at different times. So a couple of key insights about how sleep deprivation affects our performance. It's shown that cognitive function declines 20 to 30% when we are sleep deprived. And that poor recovery increases our stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, um, and causes emotional exhaustion. It actually gives us decision fatigue, and leads to more errors being made. You might notice on days that you're tired, it's harder to make decisions, and we become more irritable when we're asked to make those decisions. Um, and then just statistically, sleep-deprived employees make up about 30% more mistakes than well-rested employees. So it's really in the workplace best interest to make sure people are managing their rest and recovery, not just in their home life, but also in their work life. And I'm curious, who here has experienced decision fatigue, or maybe a day where you just feel like you have poor judgment because you're too tired? In what ways has sleep impacted your performance at work, and how have you overcome that? Does anybody feel vulnerable enough to share some of their personal experience with sleep and how that's impacted? I know from my personal experience, there's a lot of critical and creative uh, thinking in my role. And if I don't get enough rest, those critical thinking skills and that creative capacity of mine goes out the window. And suddenly I'm having a hard time focusing. And so those are cues for me that I can pick up on that let me know that I'm experiencing sleep debt, which isn't quite as severe as sleep deprivation, but implies that we have um, a lack of sleep that's causing functional impairment. And we have some great comments here in chat. Kristen says, I get cranky. I hate to admit it, but I do, right? And so I hear you picking up on that emotional exhaustion piece, right? We just don't have as much emotional flexibility when we're experiencing sleep debt or sleep deprivation. Anita says, my memory is full of holes for work knowledge, right? Totally. We might go to access something that we know is in there, but we just can't grab it. It's like, where is that fact? That's a great one. So yeah, memory recall is impacted. Thank you for sharing that. And then how have we overcome that? Is there a way that once we notice, hey, I'm a little cranky, I'm having a hard time focusing, I can't remember things I need to. When we experience those symptoms, what is a way that we overcome that or set them back in balance? Just kind of curious. And there may not be an answer. There's certainly not a right or wrong answer. For me, I noticed that taking little micro rests on that day can help me regain some of my uh, energy back. Hi, Jolene.
Hi, Lydia. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us.
Good, good. Thanks for doing this today. I would say for me, which I'm really tired, I didn't sleep well last night already, representing that today, I went out for a fresh air walk to help perk me up and give me some energy. So I feel like short walks or fresh air, getting out from the office does help.
Beautiful. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you engage in an active recovery process where you're giving your mind a break from the office environment, you're moving your body, and in that, it's kind of like a meditation of sorts that helps you feel refreshed. Would you agree with that?
Yes, because I practice yoga weekly, so I would associate sort of that. I can't always do that, but and the cost adds up when you go to any kind of yoga class or any exercise class. But nature, it's easy to walk in Montana, so yeah. it's definitely takes your mind off the load a little bit and gives you a chance to clear.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
We're going to go into some strategies later, and I love hearing those strategies already coming forward. So thank you for sharing, everyone. BK says, I take a quick 5-minute walk outside, sun preferable, right? That sun can help wake us up. So we have some coping strategies in common here. And Kirsten, sorry, says, my problem is I tell myself I'm going to go to bed earlier that night, but I never do because I'm not tired. Interesting, right? Thank you for sharing that piece. I know it can be vulnerable talking about our routines and the things that we are working on in the scope of our well-being. And so noticing that how that energy level is impacting our sleep, right? If we're not burning out our energy during the day, how is that impacting our ability to actually unwind in the evening? Thanks for sharing that. So I don't want to spend a lot of time here because I don't think it's necessarily helpful to just dwell on the negative effects, the doom and the gloom, but I do think it's important to bring into awareness some impacts of sleep on workplace performance. If we are in a state of sleep debt or sleep deprivation, we have cognitive decline, slower reaction times, impaired memory. There's that one coming up. Um, it impacts our emotional resilience, and so it amplifies workplace stress and burnout. It also weakens our immune system, so we're more subject to maybe pick up that office cold that's going around. And I'm curious, in your experience working with your teams, how do you notice the effects? Is there has there been a time when, because of the nature of the work, the whole team is experiencing fatigue? And how do we notice that in one another?
This is Jolene. I would just say not everybody is always affected, but you know, several people can have the sleep deprivation and are maybe need to cancel a meeting or go home early, or I think the substance of the meeting is diminished. And I'm guilty of that myself. Sometimes I'll say, if I'm sick or I've had a really poor sleep, I'll just say, you know, I might make a mistake in what I'm saying, so please don't hesitate to correct me.
I love that, right? That the humbleness in admitting, hey, I'm human, I'm experiencing some fatigue today, I might make a mistake. And I'm also hearing this allowance of policies and some flexibility. It may not always be possible, but when we are noticing fatigue in our team, what can we do in that moment? So I'm hearing maybe cancel or reschedule a meeting so it's more productive when people are rested. I'm hearing maybe take some micro breaks to gain some rest at work. And I'm just posing this question because that's what we're going to really be conceptualizing throughout the training, is how can we embed micro recovery moments into our workday so that we're normalizing the need for rest so that our productive times are more productive. And so let's go couple workplace barriers that may impact our rest. Late night working habits and screen exposure before bedtime can disrupt our circadian rhythm. If we're experiencing really high workload or a pressure in a deadline, that might limit our recovery time because we're pushing to get something accomplished. However, a company that introduced structured break policies saw a 15% increase in productivity when they created a little bit more space for employees to rest throughout the day. So that giving that brain some quiet time really does allow for higher output afterwards. And I'm curious, where are we noticing the barriers in our workplace? Are there certain barriers that we're experiencing to that impact our ability to rest or impact our circadian rhythm in a way that it's impacting our sleep at home? While you guys are thinking about that question, I'm just going to check in here with chat. Excellent. There's some great wisdom here, and I really appreciate you sharing. BK, I hope it's okay I call you by your initials, says, I avoid team-oriented tasks when sleep deprived and focus on solo tasks. So they're saying that when they're sleep deprived, maybe they notice a diminished capacity to engage socially, but it's easier to focus on quiet solo tasks, right? And so maybe noticing how you can prioritize your different work tasks depending on your state of rest. Thanks for sharing that, guys. And so I want to get into the science of recovery, active versus passive recovery. And I want to pull up the definition here. So passive recovery is an approach that involves complete rest without physical activity, allowing the body to recover naturally. These activities include sleeping, sitting, or lying down. And then active recovery is a method that incorporates low-intensity physical activity that promotes blood flow and aids muscle recovery without adding significant stress to our system. And so examples like that we've already heard from the group involve walking, gentle yoga, sometimes known as restorative yoga, or light stretching. And so noticing how we balance passive recovery and active recovery, making sure we have a nice mix of both in our daily routine. And I'm curious, based on those two definitions, do you have a tendency? Do you notice that you prefer more active recovery? Do you have a tendency to engage in more passive recovery? And what might be some of those favorite activities? Julie says, plus solo tasks allow you to go at your own pace and not bite anyone's head off, right? Like, I need some space today. And that's a really good example of creating a boundary in the workplace. Hey, I'm fatigued today. I'm not at full capacity. I need some solo work time. I'm going to put up a boundary that's going to protect my emotional capacity and also the workplace dynamic. And so that's a really emotionally intelligent choice and also a great example of communicating a boundary in the workplace. Thanks for sharing that.
Lydia, I would say active versus passive. It's really hard to go active with a complete rest with our workloads and deadlines. So I think I see most people being able to do passive, and myself included in that. Complete rest is really, I think, very difficult to achieve, especially with, like I said, your workload and also the staff shortages sometimes, which we're seeing. And it doesn't help to have the added chronic news that we have with what's happening in the world to actually
Yeah.
totally disconnect from everything.
Yes, totally. Thank you for naming that too. The current events and political climate and social status, right? All of these factors that are impacting our environment that may be out of our control also impact our ability to rest. And I think it's worth mentioning. I'm also hearing that passive recovery, which would be sitting, laying down, sleeping, that type of recovery might not be as well suited for the workplace, but at more active recovery, gentle movement, maybe meditation seems to be more of a way to incorporate micro recovery breaks. Is that what I'm hearing? Awesome. And then a little bit about sleep cycles. If we were going to look at the different cycles and how they impact our sleep, we have the non-rapid eye movement, which is stage 1, a transition between wakefulness and sleep, or light sleep that lasts several minutes. We have stage 2, which is deeper relaxation with slowed heart rate and breathing, and the body temperature drops. And then we have stage 3, deep sleep, also known as slow wave sleep, essential for physical restoration and immune function. And so why I just wanted to mention that is the correlation to active or passive recovery. Sleep encompasses both non-rapid eye movement sleep, so those lower stages of sleep, and the rapid eye movement stages, which is that deeper stage of sleep. And so these are the forms of passive recovery that provide essential restoration for both the body and the mind. And active recovery, on the other hand, involves engaging in low intensity activities during the waking hours to facilitate our body coming from our activated nervous system, where we may be in our threat response, we may be activated, or maybe just midway, we might be in our drive nervous system, where we are action oriented, accomplishing goals, but it's still hard to become restful in that state. And so those active recovery methods allow us to dip down into that healing piece of our nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, where our bodies naturally rest, digest, and integrate nutrients from the food that we've eaten, repair our cells divide, all those types of restorative physiological processes happen when we're in that parasympathetic nervous system. And so really the active recovery is a way of thinking, how can I, when I'm elevated, how can I get myself back down into that parasympathetic nervous system so I can more effectively work, dip back into the drive mode, or I can more effectively start to decompress and then start to unwind and get ready for that deep sleep, that passive recovery. So I just wanted to kind of dive into that science. And I'm curious, it's a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions or comments about those two different forms of sleep and how they impact our body? Anita says, with my job, I need to just talk to my coworkers to release the stress of the feelings of depression of the situations I am dealing with and get me up and away from the phone and the computer. Anita, I love that you shared that. That is actually a scientifically backed strategy. One that we have, how can your workplace integrate recovery strategies, right? Just talking to colleagues in a way where we're receiving emotional support from them is a strategy. I kind of wanted to click through here. To bring, now we went too far. I was just gonna bring up a slide that talks about social buffering and how when we talk with our friends, family, close colleagues, people that we feel emotionally safe with, we release oxytocin, which actually buffers stress hormones. And so the oxytocin binds with the cortisol and the adrenaline to actually create a physiological difference in the way those stress hormones are processed. It actually allows our blood vessels, our arteries to stay dilated in the presence of stress rather than constricting. And so it's great that you're noticing that works for you. And it's so cool then to examine the science behind, like, physiologically, what is the mechanism happening that makes that work. So thanks for sharing that. I brought in this active versus passive recovery video. We don't have to watch it if people feel like they understand the concept. Sometimes I like to put things in so we can follow the curiosity, but how are we feeling on this topic? Do we want to dive in more, or do we want to push ahead in the presentation? Video, yay, okay, here we go. So I'm going to mute myself and then hopefully this will play.
Yeah, Lydia, when you mute yourself, it mutes the video. Lydia, you're muted.
I think it's in the drop down when you share your screen. It says to click the box that says share sound.
Share sound.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was just getting back there. It was checked, so we'll see here. It's always fun to play the will it work game.
Hi everyone, it's Adam. I'm back again for Recreation Services talking about recovery. Today I'm going to be talking about active versus Hi everyone, it's Adam. I'm back again for Recreation Services talking about recovery. Today I'm going to be talking about active versus passive recovery. I'm going to be covering a little bit about what each of those mean, what kind of things are included in active and passive recovery, as well as when each of those is most appropriate. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to be talking much about passive recovery. So, Passive recovery, by the name, means you're not doing very much, right? It means stillness or inactivity. Essentially, a day of passive recovery is a fairly lazy day, laying around, you're watching TV, you're maybe puttering around the house, things like that, but nothing specific in terms of physical activity. Generally, passive recovery is only recommended in case of certain injuries. If you've noticed, when you have a broken bone or you're recovering from surgery, there's that time of immobilization for recovery, but even then, after serious injury, it's supposed to be minimal. Essentially, you're supposed to get moving as soon as possible, even from the most serious of injuries. Obviously, depending on how serious that is, the time varies, but the general recommendation is to get moving as soon as possible. So you can tell that passive recovery, not recommended in most situations, and when it is, it should be minimal. Essentially, a lot of times when we're very sore, inactivity feels like the best thing, but it's generally not good for muscle soreness. It's not going to help alleviate your muscle soreness, even though it feels better at the time because you're not moving and then aggravating that soreness. But in the end, it doesn't help you get better any faster. So active recovery is used to promote recovery through movement. It's not designed for intensity, it's more designed for just moving through getting through the range of motion and just kind of going through the motions. You might find on days after a really hard workout, you're feeling very heavy, very sluggish, it becomes very hard to move, but you might find that once you do start moving, after just a few minutes, you start feeling a lot better. Active recovery doesn't have to be done as part of a cool down or even the very next day. Active recovery can be done for up to a few days post-exercise and still get the benefits from it. So some of the modalities you might use for active recovery could be massage, which we've covered a little bit here with rolling balls or a rolling stick or a foam roller. Any of those can be used as a form of massage, or you can go for an actual massage when permitted by the public health restrictions. It could be mobility exercises, whether that's a stretch or a dynamic stretch, or even just going through very low intensity strength movements like a body weight squat or things like that, but still very low intensity. You're really just trying to move your muscles through the range of motion. The other thing you can try is just general light physical activity. So not necessarily a workout, but it could be walking, it could be cycling, it could be even a light jog. The term general physical activity is a relative term, so it really depends on where you're at in your fitness. If you are very fit, you can probably do a little bit more and have it still count as a light day, where if you're just starting off, your light activity will probably be a lot lighter. So it really depends on where you're at and what kind of activities you like to do and what type of things you're good at. So the goal of active recovery is essentially to promote circulation. So you're moving your muscles to try and drive blood to the muscles. When the blood gets there, it helps remove waste that's in your muscle. So byproducts from exercise like lactate gets stored in the muscle post-exercise. So the blood can come and help remove that from the muscle, which helps reduce inflammation. While the blood is also passing through, it delivers nutrients. So that helps it aid in repairing the muscle. So if you have some muscle damage from heavy lifting, it helps repair those muscles. Some examples of how active recovery helps performance. One study has shown that an active recovery can help increase the length of your next run up to 3 times that of a passive recovery. So between your first and second run, if you're doing an active recovery with massage and mobility and whatever, you can run up to 3 times further because you are that much more recovered compared to a passive recovery. Some of the reasons for that is
Sorry about that. So I know that that was talking more about passive and active recovery from a athletic or injury perspective, but I wanted to pose those concepts so that we can start to think about our sleep. When we are sleep deprived, that's our body in a way is expressing an injury, right? It's an injury to or an impairment to our functioning and well-being. And so when we're experiencing fatigue from work, when we are experiencing stress, when we're experiencing tension in the body from repetitive um, motion injuries that you might see from desk work or the same repetitive motions from seeing clients over and over again. When we're experiencing those types of impacts from our work, how can we examine which type of recovery do we need at that time? Maybe if we're feeling soreness, rather than passive recovery, the way to heal more quickly would be to engage in like a walk. And like he was saying, that increases the circulation and helps actually move the stress hormones through the body and helps us process those. So I hope that that was a helpful way of understanding the benefits of passive versus active recovery in terms of how that is impacting our physiological being. Does anybody have any questions about that piece? I want to get into a sleep hygiene activity, but I feel as though after talking about active and passive recovery, it'd be a really good opportunity for us just to take 5 minutes, checking in with what we need in this moment. Maybe we need to stand up. Maybe we need to turn our cameras off and close our eyes and lean back. But I'm going to encourage you to make yourself comfortable. And whenever you're ready, just taking a nice deep breath in through the nose, letting out a sigh, drawing out the exhale. If you feel comfortable, allowing the eyes to soften their gaze down to the floor or table in front of you. If it feels safe, perhaps allowing those eyes to fall shut. Taking another deep breath in through the nose and drawing out the exhale through the mouth. We know that drawing out the exhale through the mouth actually engages the parasympathetic nervous system. After a few deep breaths, I'm going to invite you to just find a little bit of active movement, a little bit of active recovery, moving the body in whichever way feels good for you. There's no right or wrong. Maybe stretching through the arms and the legs. Maybe finding the stretch lifting one leg or the other. Once we move the body a little bit, coming back to a place of stillness. And then I'd like us to bring our focus to the top of our head. Take a deep breath, and on the exhale, just imagine the top of our head just relaxing and melting, feeling the gripping in our scalp release. Likewise, bringing our awareness to our eyes and our forehead. On the exhale, allowing all the muscles in our face to just melt. Feeling the jaw release, finding space between the teeth. Taking another deep breath, feeling that relaxation we cultivated melt down into the neck and shoulders. into the arms and hands, just going limp. Another breath, focusing on the back and the chest, and on the exhale, feeling them soften. Feeling that sense of ease move down into our hips. And just inviting a little bit of space in the hips, allowing them to open, feeling that sense of ease melt down into our thighs, finding some relaxation in the knees, making sure we're not locking the knees, finding that nice, comfy bend. Feeling that sense of ease melting down into our calves and shins, all the way down to our feet and toes. And then zooming out from each individual body part, just feeling the whole body in a sense of ease. We're going to take 3 breaths like this. In through the nose, drawing out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. One last time, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Whenever you're ready, beginning to wiggle fingers, maybe wiggling toes or swaying side to side, just gently waking the body up, but moving slowly so we preserve this sense of ease we just cultivated in the body. And when you're ready, you can blink open the eyes, look around the room, and bring yourself back. And whenever you're ready, whenever you're feeling integrated back into the meeting space, I'm curious, how can a short relaxation exercise like this be integrated into the work that we do for ourselves and the work that we do with each other? Even just a quick 5-minute break, how are we noticing? How do we feel? So that was a lot of questions. First question, how are we noticing we feel after practicing? And 2, how can we incorporate short relaxation, little micro rests into our day? And while you guys chew on those questions, I'm going to set us up for our sleep and recovery integration checklist. We have a little bit of time left here, and with our time left, I'd really like to dive into the resources that I've created for you to take with you, and you're welcome to share them. They are yours to use however you see fit. But I wanted to make sure that you had what you needed to look at different ideas for integrating sleep into your workday.
Lydia, this is Jolene. You asked for feedback. I would just say I did feel even just the 3-minute. I practice yoga, but I don't do it as regularly as I'd like to. So just that 3 minutes, I feel like I really had a lot of sort of tension out of my shoulders. We're already sort of sitting over our desk working constantly. Yeah, so I could see trying to schedule yourself even on your calendar, every 2 hours or so, just get up and move or do a stretch.
Yeah, so I'm hearing you say that after the exercise, all of a sudden it was a little bit easier to be mindful of the tension or the gripping that we had previously. Like our minds kind of have a way of blocking that out when we're task oriented, but then when we come back in, we're like, oh, actually, I didn't even realize I was clenching my jaw or I was shrugging my shoulders, right? And so just using that time to check back in and reset can be helpful. Thanks for sharing that, Jolene.
The deep breaths, breathing is helpful too. I think that adds to the success. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. Anything else on the breathing exercise and progressive muscle relaxation before we dive into looking at the two resources? So the first resource that I would recommend looking at, and I wonder if I can just pull it up on the screen here. Oh, ad block. So what I have here for you is two lists of checklists, and I don't want them to be overwhelming. Nobody's expected to practice each and every one of these, but I wanted to have some evidence-based behaviors that you could look at and maybe be inspired by. Maybe there's one that you want to try. And so we have the workplace-based recovery strategies. These are things like micro breaks, strategic resting, desk-friendly recovery, like what we just did. One of my favorites is the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, it's for your eyes to reduce eye strain. You look at least 20 feet away for 20 seconds. So that's a really easy one. You don't even have to get up from where you are. You just kind of have to look in the distance. And looking in the distance then relaxes those eye muscles from that up close work. There's several on here: blue light reduction, sleep supported policies, power naps, mindful caffeine use, hydration, looking at how hydration and nutrition impacts our energy levels. Oh, the social connection. This is the one. Brief conversations with colleagues or friends to boost oxytocin to reduce stress. And then post-work recovery, right? Engage in low effort leisure activities. What does that sound like? That's active recovery, right? So some kind of gentle active recovery after work to help shift us into our home life and let go of the work. So those are all things that you can integrate into your workday. So we're not putting the burden of self-care on ourselves that everything has to be done in our own time. It's I think really longevity-wise, we have to look at how we integrate these elements of our humanity into our routines. There is some sleep hygiene options on here. So these would be more things that you practice at home. Making a consistent sleep schedule, creating a wind down routine, optimizing your sleep environment, limiting stimulants, reducing evening screen time, morning light exposure. That's a great one. Getting the light exposure in the morning on the back of your retina actually helps sync your circadian rhythm so that it's easier to wake in the morning. But what you can do is come through these lists and maybe just pick one that feels like it would make an impact in your day. And then from there, once you've identified one, you can utilize the next worksheet, which is the Personal Sleep and Recovery Action Plan. This is a sleep-specific SMART goal sheet, and I want to offer my ongoing support with any of the material that we review during these pathways sessions, you're always welcome to schedule a one-on-one consult with me. I'm available for you as a health coach or a wellness consultant. We can talk about what your goals are or what your interest is, what you want to learn more. And help I help the client accomplish what it is that they are setting out to do. It's a non-directive process. So it's really collaborative, and it's really just here as a way to ensure that you have follow-up, because we understand that nobody's well-being was ever magically fixed with a one-off training. And so we really want you to feel that support network in accomplishing the things you want to accomplish. This is pretty self-guided, even without a health coaching session. There's a section where you reflect on your current sleep as it is now. Then you would set the SMART goal. So this might be one meaningful change. That might be one of the things from the integration checklist. There's a place to track your progress. And there's a place to identify an accountability partner. And so that could be somebody in your workplace who's also wanting to work on sleep. It can be a friend, family member, or it can even be me as a health behavior coach. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys had access to that. So closing reflections, we have a few minutes. I'm curious, after everything that we discussed, what was the takeaway? Do we have access to the slide presentation? Yes, I will ensure that the PowerPoint and the 2 documents will be added to the portal. I was trying to upload them. We were having a bit of a file size snafu. And I can also send these out via email to the people who are registered for the training. So I usually like to follow up with that email as well. Great question, Anita. Any other takeaways?
Thanks, Lydia, for all that information and the opportunity to connect with you afterwards. It'd be nice to have time to go through the forms. I know I have an 11 o'clock meeting and others do too, but I'd love to be able to dive into that a little deeper. I think one of the things that I think you could take away from this is, maybe making some kind of an automated system for everybody in our team to be able to say, hey, remember your 3 to 5 minutes deep breathing or something like that, or a link to something to click on it to get a little help with that, with relaxation.
I love that. So I'm hearing a big takeaway was normalizing the need for those active micro rest breaks, right? Even
I say
just oh, sorry.
take advantage of the AI
Yeah,
and put that in automatically in our systems to actually take some breathing and rest. Yeah.
that's beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing your takeaway. My message is for everyone is that remember that your rest is not a luxury. It's something that you deserve, and it's a necessary performance strategy. And so I hope that we can all prioritize our well-being, advocate for recovery, and lead by example. I have those follow-up resources and my health coaching list. And if you are inspired to be a catalyst of wellness programming in your work environment and you aren't already, I invite you to register as one of our wellness champions, and we can begin that customized support for your workplace. So keep showing up for yourself. I really appreciate you taking the time today, and remember that your well-being matters. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I will be able to stick around if anybody wants to stay after for any additional information or questions. Desiree and I will stay on for just a minute, but feel free to go enjoy your days. See you next time.